Welcome back, fiber friends. Today we're going to be talking about some of my silly little natural dyeing experiments, my fairy soup experiments, as I have been referring to them on the TikTok and the Instagram and all of my other social platforms. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube, though. It's always a pleasure to have all of y'all here. I love our little YouTube community. I do feel like I can be a little bit more authentic and goofy on here, which I super appreciate. But before we talk about all the natural dyeing, we're also going to be talking about the yarn drop. It's been a while since I did a yarn drop. You might not even know that on top of making content and spinning my own yarn to actually use in a lot of my own projects, I also spin yarn for all of you lovely folks. So I do small little yarn drops. I call them little because there are a lot of spinners who like take commissions and also sell a lot more yarn than I do and all of that stuff. So in the grand scheme of things, like I'm a pretty small scale spinner. But I do really appreciate all of the support I always get. It's been a while since I did a yarn drop because these past few months I have just been figuring out kind of where I'm going with my art. I have been, again, a little bit more selfish with a lot of my yarn because I am trying to make a collection of both finished pieces and actual skeins that if the opportunity presented itself and I needed to apply to like a residency or some kind of, I don't know, show or something like that, that I would have the art. I would have the art to give folks. So I have been taking a lot more for myself, but let me show you some of the yarns that are going to be in the yarn drop. I say some because inevitably there are going to end up probably being like a few extra skeins that I throw in there before the drop, which is going to be on Black Friday, FYI. I think I'm going to have the drop officially drop at noon and not like super early or super late because I just feel like that's inconvenient for people. But if you want to get in on some of that, you can check it out this Friday. So this is my lovely bouquet of yarns that are going to be in the drop. Let's start with the only one that doesn't have a tag, the only one that I'm going to probably need to take apart or at least take out of the skein to like figure out what my yardage is here. This is a really beautiful skein. It's 2-ply. It's Polworth silk that I blended with some teal merino in a few different like shades of teal. And then you have these really lovely Wensleydale locks that I got from Windsong Farms, which is also where I got the whole Wensleydale fleece that I purchased recently. Their locks are super soft and shiny, like some of the softest Wensleydale fiber I've ever put hands on. And I just really like, I don't know, this yarn is giving like seafoam and pearls and I don't know. I love this skein. She's a beaut. This lovely lady is also going to be available. This is the 3-ply. It's a gradient spin, so it's a chain ply. And as you can see, it's a gradient from teal to yellow, and I'm calling this one Good Grief. It is 100% BFL, and I'm pretty sure I have, yeah, it's from Angel Locks Fiberworks in Westminster, Massachusetts? No, Maryland. These singles I am really, really proud of, and so I'm actually going to be making them available as singles. This is a naturally dyed by Madder Root. It is 25% silk, 25% flax, 50% merino. Again, I just think it looks stunning as a 1-ply. It has a lot of dimension because of the silk and the flax. I'm really happy with this, and this will also be available. We have some lovely Gulf Coast native skeins that are going to be available. That's a rare wool. This one is called Bright Future, and I remember I applied this with some thrifted, like, upcycled yarn. And then the Gulf Coast Native is blended with some thready scraps, a little bit of pink silk, and some eucalyptus pink. That's what the fun, some eucalyptus crimp. That's what the fun gold parts are. And then this is Celebration. This is a more traditional 2-ply as opposed to, like, a spiral ply. And this also has some scraps, more specifically, they're teal and purple scraps that I sorted out from my scrap bag. And then I also blended it with a little bit of orange mohair and some more of that golden eucalyptus crimp. This lovely lady is also just a traditional 2-ply. It is California Variegated Mutant. It's some lovely natural gray fleece that I processed myself. And then I actually put it through the drum carder with some sari silk in the Monet colorway from the Woolery. Their sari silk is some of the softest sari silk I've ever used, and the Monet colorway, well, very subtle green, purples, and blues, I just really love. I think this is a lovely skein. And this one is called Winter Dreams, and then this one is called Growing on Me. I ended up having some brown, like, alpaca wool blend and some brown BFL, and then I applied it with some of these fun green mohair locks that I've been saving, and I just think this came out really fun and mossy, very like reminiscent of some of my earlier spinning work. These last two are definitely like my personal favorites in the drop, if I'm being honest with you. So first we have this one. This one is called Parking Lot Sunset. It is some classic sort of gray oatmeal cormo, so a very fine wool, and that's plied against some almost sunset colored BFL. Uh, Parking Lot Sunset. I mean, she's a beaut. She's super cushy, super soft. Absolutely love this skein. If you're looking for something slightly heftier, I give you, oh, what was the name for this was perfect. What was it? Burnout Bestie. Burnout Bestie. Okay, this color scheme reminds me of like the cool burnout stoner girl that I was friends with in like the 2010s in high school. I love this because it's like the brown with these like groovy, not rainbow because they're a little bit more muted than rainbow, but I love this. This is almost 300 yards. It's another 2-ply. I've really been liking making yarns where I apply like a neutral color to something a little bit fun, a little bit crazy. After my yarn drops, I always reinvest like the money from the yarn drops into more art supplies, more like art education for myself. And so I do think I'm going to be planning to do a few more skeins sort of in this style if I can help it. And those are all of the yarns that I have ready to go, photos taken. They can go onto the website as soon as I like write the descriptions for them and get them all scheduled. So you'll definitely see those on the yarn drop. If you're interested, you can go check it out. I'll put a link to my website and all of my socials down below if you are interested. And if you don't follow me on everything yet, I make lots of different kinds of content depending on which platform I'm from or I'm using at the time for that content. It is such a bummer to me. If you're curious, I am pretty sad that like TikTok will not be a thing anymore, most likely moving into the future. And I totally understand that a lot of people are like, well, just put your stuff on Instagram. But it's just like the type of content and the style of editing of content that does well on Instagram just doesn't traditionally do as well on or I'm sorry, that does well on TikTok doesn't traditionally do as well on Instagram, and like kind of vice versa. I guess the vice versa does apply. And you know, that's not always true, but I just I don't know. I don't know. And I don't love editing on Instagram. I find it incredibly frustrating. I do not find it as intuitive as the TikTok editing, which definitely has its qualms as well. I'm not a tech savvy guy. I'm not an editor. And so I think that's always the issue that I have with different platforms. Some people have been recommending Blue Sky, but I'm just so wary to like start putting energy and effort into a whole separate platform. So I am trying to get as many folks as possible to also follow me on Instagram and YouTube. So again, thank you so much for joining me here. But the thing that you guys are probably all waiting for, my natural dyeing experiments, I won't lie, they've been going great. They've been going well. I can't believe that I thought it was going to be... okay, my first few natural dyeing experiments, in my defense, did not go perfectly. Some of them went really well, but then in that same batch, some of them also went really poorly, and I couldn't really figure out what was going wrong. So I've taken a really kind of scientific and rigorous approach to the dyeing where I'm keeping track of like weights and percentages and all of these things on the labels as I'm dyeing and seeing how the color is taking and all of these things. I'm also doing a lot more research on how to actually activate the color in some of these dyes. And I have been experimenting with actual like heated dyeing. I got the hot plate that I said I was going to get. I might have unboxed it on the last video, but I don't think I did. I got the hot plate, I set it up in the wool shed, and I have been dyeing things in there, and it has been going really, really well. The first one that I started with was the Brazil wood, and I have to say, the results that I got from the Brazil wood alone just gave me so much confidence moving forward. I know that there are some people who strive for like, everybody strives for different things when they are dyeing, just like when you're spinning or when you're crocheting or knitting, right? We all have different end goals, and one person's beautiful, perfect finished object is not going to be everybody's. For me, I love a tonal dye, so evenness is not really something that I am like super striving for, although I did experiment with some different techniques, and like I feel like I can obviously see the fiber that I added dry to the dye pot, or not soaked with warm water to the dye pot. It was wet with cold water, versus some things that I like soaked in warm water, and then I added the dye to that warm water and it became the dye pot, if that makes any sense. The way that those dyes took were really intense, and I'm going to show you some examples of that as well. I do have my eyes on some other natural dyes now that we're just like kind of having the conversation. Weld. I have my eye on Weld. I really like the bright yellows that I can get from that. I think I would like to pick up some Weld. I think it's time to pick up some indigo. Like, I know maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just feel like I've had enough luck, and I clearly know how to follow dyeing instructions well enough that I'm getting results that look really spectacular, at least to me, very usable, very exciting. And so I think it's time I pick up some indigo. And then mulberry leaf. I want to be able to get a nice green. I want to be able to get a green without indigo, without having to take an indigo, or I'm sorry, without having to take a yellow and then overlap a little bit of indigo on top of it. Because when you're dyeing, you should kind of mix colors the way that you would mix colors on a paint palette, which is to say you would not take white and add it to a giant glob of black to get to gray, right? You would take the white and then you would slowly add black to get to the color that you want. You start with a bright color and then overlay darker colors on top. At least that's the method that, in my opinion, is like most intuitive and gets most controllable and accurate results, right? Because you can start by overlaying light, maybe exhaust baths over like a yellow in order to achieve the right shade that you're going for, as opposed to starting with something really dark and then needing to brighten it up with like yellow baths over and over and over again, if that makes any sense. Enough yapping. All of these things were mordanted with alum, and I'll try to remember to tell you guys if it was an exhaust bath alum or if it was a regular bath. Let me show you guys what I dyed. This is the first batch. This is the confidence batch. Let me take it out of the actual bag so you can see it. It is the most spectacular. Like, this is one of my favorite shades of coral. Like, this pink, almost, it's not orange, it's very red, just stunning. Brazil wood. This was something where it was in cold water and I added it to a hot dye bath, and so as you can see, some of it is a little bit more tonal, like some of it's a little bit lighter and darker, but overall it took like fairly evenly, in my opinion, especially compared to if I just added it dry. This was like a 1-to-1, not a 1-to-1 ratio, but this was like the recommended WOF percentage of Brazil wood to, I believe I have 150 grams or maybe 200 grams of a 7% mordant on this. So 7 grams of alum to every 100 grams of wool, if that makes any sense. These were so spectacular. I was like, I can do this. So this is the exhaust bath on, this was the exhaust bath of that alum, okay, on this mohair, and then the exhaust bath of that Brazil wood with a little splash of Osage orange that I had activated but not boiled yet. I was kind of shooting for this skin tone, if you can believe it. I was feeling very, like, ballsy, and I was like, let me see if I can get kind of my skin tone is what I was shooting for, like a Caucasian skin tone, obviously. I might dabble in trying to achieve other shades as well, but I was kind of shooting for my own for a project that I want to work on. So I think this is pretty, like, I think this was pretty good. I think so far I've been really confident and happy with the way that I've been able to, like, match things. I mean, mind you, I'm, like, sitting right there, making sure things are not getting too dark. A lot of the times, like, I don't just leave it, let it sit and go and not check on it as the dyeing is occurring. I know some people kind of just, like, let it sit. I wasn't really doing that. I was watching this, and I think this came out really well. And then when I poured the water out, it was, like, almost entirely clear, so I almost entirely exhausted the dye pot with this. I'm not gonna carry, like, all of the fiber over to show you guys. I'm just bringing over little samples. So first off, this was also 7% mordanted, but when I dropped this in the logwood dye pot, as you can see, it was warm. It was soaked with warm water, and I really do think that helped the dye permeate really deeply and intensely. Like, this color is insane. When this fiber was wet, it almost looked like blue, and I'm just so, like, I get, like, this is a natural dye. Like, that's insane. I have been really excited with the results that I've been getting too, because I would really like to dye in the way that I've seen other dyers, other natural dyers get these like spectacular bright colors. I want to work on kind of making my own like little extracts, and then doing I really want to start dyeing some like comb top and robing. I think it's time. I think after all of this, we're kind of getting to that. But I also did mohair with the logwood. The mohair got an 8% mordant, and again, like, the color take on this is so beautiful. And then with the mordant that I used for those two, I exhausted it on this mohair on about, I'd say, like, dang near 300 grams of mohair, maybe more. Some of this will probably end up on the shop once it's dried. And then I use the exhaust from the logwood on this as well to get these really lovely pale purples. I think this is going to spin up great. If you guys have ever seen, oh my gosh, who is that lovely Maryland-based they raise Angora mohair goats, and they do a lot of the dyeing themselves, and then they spin it up. It's usually singles yard. I can't remember the spinner right now, but they do beautiful work. I really admire their work, and so I might end up spinning up some of this, and maybe that'll end up in the shop as well. The rest of these samples are damp, like super damp, so they are gonna lighten a little bit in color, keep that in perspective. But these are both, I'm pretty sure I did an 8% mordant on both of these. This is a blend of madder and Osage orange. I kind of eyeballed the Osage orange. It was a little bit, I think it was like a little bit on the higher side of the recommended WOF, not more than what's recommended, but a little bit on the higher side. And then the madder, I did about 50%. Madder, sometimes it's recommended to do almost up to 100% of the weight of fiber. That's what WOF stands for, FYI. But I only did 50%. I love the way these oranges came out. Again, I wanted oranges. This is the mohair, this is the wool. Look at that. Look at that. That just makes me so happy. It just looks like, reminds me of like a beautiful orange mushroom for some reason. These last two, I literally pulled out of the dye pots this morning. They were cooling overnight. So first we have a 7% mordanted. This is the exhaust of the madder and Osage mixed with Kutch. Cutch, to get this lovely sort of orangey, cinnamony brown. I really love this color as well. And then what I would consider like our bonus dye for the week, I guess, is that I finally experimented with the Bengala prefixer and the Susuzome Dye. Okay, here's my thing. They're okay. I don't like the method of needing to apply these types of dyes. I think if I was going to dye like a cotton yarn that was like maybe already spun, that I would totally be open to using something like this. But the method that you need to use for the Bengala prefixer and the Susuzome dye is that you need to massage the prefixer and the dye into the fiber, which if you're working with something that is on the finer side, or a wool, or again, something like this lovely mohair that we have here, you just have to be a little bit gentle, and it's hard to get a super even application as a result. That's okay, because I kind of didn't want like 100% black fiber. I wanted to see what the grays looked like, and if it was a true black, or if it was going to end up being like looking like purple or blue when it was faded out. I will say, pain in the butt dye to use, at least for me, at least in my opinion. I kind of prefer the alum and traditional dyeing method. But I do like the way the fiber came out. And there's no doubt that this is a true black with those lovely grays mixed in. I'm definitely going to use this fiber. I mean, this is beautiful. I want you guys to see how like the application was really difficult to get a super even spread on it, especially with the mohair, just because some parts of it got really nicely dark. Some of it definitely stayed a little bit more white, but that's okay. That's kind of part of the fun. Again, it's a learning experience, and I'm glad that I experimented with it, especially now, because whenever I see other Susuzome dyes or like colors of that kind of dye, I'm always tempted to pick another bottle up, but I'm always like, well, you don't even know if you like that method of dyeing. And now I know I don't, and then it's not worth the money for me. You know what I mean? I'll stick to other natural dyes, at least for now, and maybe when I want to dabble in something different or different colors, maybe I will go back to, I don't know, messing around with that dyeing method. If you can believe it, that is all for today, folks. We're doing a super short episode this week, just because we got to get some stuff onto the website. I have to do a lot of posting and advertising for my yarn drop, just because, again, it is a way of bringing in a little bit of more money around this time of year when I have time off for art supplies, which is great because now is the time of year that I have time to actually like shop for new art supplies that I actually want. I do try to be very picky about the fiber that I bring into my studio so that it doesn't sit around super long. And as a result, I do tend to need to spend a little bit more time like really curating exactly what I want. And also what I want to show you guys in the next few months and what I want to do with you guys because I need materials for that as well. For some art yarn how-to videos that I am planning on doing, I am working on a how-to video on the chain plaid yarn because that is one that a lot of people have been requesting, especially on Instagram. And so I really want to get that up as well. You guys can expect that soon. But thank you so much for hanging out today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this little update on what I have been doing in my studio this week. This has literally been taking up like all of my time. It is I eat, I sleep, I go in and out and switch out the dye pots and spin things. So I hope you guys are all having a wonderful holiday week. I hope that the holidays isn't too stressful for you, and if it is, I hope you have the time to go make something and relax a little bit. Don't forget to hit that follow button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.